Hello YouTube, welcome to the second chapter in relation to comic rescue, and we are working on the master comics. Now what I did was I removed all the tape and I performed an aqueous bath with methyl cellulose and calcium hydroxide. Now I'm going to show you how it looks, but before I do, I just want to let you know I know it looks bad, and I'm going to explain why. So here is the cover. As you can see, and as it was, the spine was completely split. We knew this. There are some pieces that I couldn't prevent that came up when I removed the tape. This book was very brittle. In fact, it's one of the most brittle books that I worked on since I've been doing this. You touched it and pieces fell off. So you have to have a cost-benefit analysis. The book I want to conserve so I can read it or someone else can read it in future generations. The way the book was right now, it was in horrible condition where if you touched the page, it would flake apart and it would break. The tape was pulling the cover, it was destroying it. The reason why it was so difficult to get the tape off was because basically the adhesive of the tape absorbed into the fibers of the comic, making it virtually impossible to remove with heat or to remove with chemicals or all the other ways that I do it. So what we're gonna do, the first step is I'm gonna cover the cover with my Ramay paper. Then I am going to once again wet the paper and the Ramay paper so we can smooth it out. And before we do any type of leaf casting, as you know based on my prior uploads, the paper needs to be fully wet. So there are a few pieces that came off. This is a piece that is loose. This is a piece that's loose. There's a few pieces here. We're going to try to leaf cast them in. And I have a few things that are different that we're going to do regarding this leaf casting. So stick around. Maybe some more things will be picked up, or you can learn a few things in watching me do this. So right now, I flipped the book. And as you can see, I used 2 screens to flip it so we keep everything in place. I'm gonna wet the back because we want the pieces of the cover to be as flat as possible. I'm using warm water. Now I'm going to use my brush to flatten out the cover as best as possible as well. Next, what we're gonna do is we are slowly going to remove the back piece of the Ramay paper so that the pieces that I put in place hopefully will remain where they are, and it looks like they did. And I just want to let you know that there is significant improvement with the coloring of the book. So this was extremely dark and brown. And remember, I'm trying to make a book that is functionable, a book that could be used. And the way this book was, it could not be. The next step that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna paint some methyl cellulose in the area that I want the leaf casting to stick. This will act as a binding agent for the leaf casting to absorb better into the paper. So we're going to put it here, and here we want to put it. I want to put it on the, again, I did it here. We're going to put a little bit more. Let's work around. Let's put some in this corner. And then I'm going to go all across the bottom here because we have to strengthen this area up, which is loose. See how it came apart? I really have to try to not to do that, but I want to leave a little gap because I want the pulp to penetrate into the crack. So now we're going to go up. Here is a piece that needs to be connected. This is a piece that needs to be connected, and basically the whole spine, as you can see, we need to create some type of pulping so this book hopefully can be read. And I don't mind if the piece moves a little bit because the casting will go in and fill in the voids. Put a little bit more methyl cellulose here. I hope you guys are awake right now. And again, I have to say that I do know that this does look bad, but remember, this book, the way it was, would not be able to be read. It would disintegrate. And just an example is this bottom piece right here. If you recall, there was tape on the back bottom corner that I did remove, but in removing it, the paper was so fragile that it basically just disintegrated once I tried to work on it. And that happens with brittle books such as this. So I don't know if everyone knows this, but one of the worst types of books that you can buy online or in the golden age are books that CGC designates as brittle, because what is the purpose of having a book if you cannot touch it? And those brittle books are very difficult to touch because they will fall apart. So I applied the methyl cellulose as a binding agent. Hopefully I achieve my goal with what I'm doing. Now I have my paper pulp. So what I want to do is, bear with me, I'm going to stir it up for about 10-15 seconds and then we'll apply. Okay guys, I am not making margaritas, although I wish I was. It's getting a little cold where I am from. Fall is coming. So I have some pulp. Let's start with the left side and we're gonna work our way around. Because one thing I noticed in doing this with other books was I may have skipped areas and I had to go back and reapply the pulp. By doing that, it doesn't turn out as well as it should, because you're basically applying two applications of the pulp that unfortunately may not match up with the first application. So, and I'm also going to show you, I'm going to do something a little different this time with this application. So here we go. We're going to do this corner here, which is wretched. We'll fill that in. We'll do all along the bottom here. We are going to do again right here, which is an area. This is a weak area. And I'm going to sacrifice some of the graphics on the book because I'd rather have it a little stronger. So like I said, the goal is for the book to be used. And I think that's one of the main purposes of having a conserved grade. Here's a little weak. Okay. Let me mix this up again. I hope the camera is recording all of this. We're gonna put a little here, a little bit more here. Okay, I want to put a little bit more here. It may look like it's a little uneven, but once the pressure is put down, it really works well. Okay, now we're gonna work on the spine. So let's start from this crease up. Now this is the important part, the most important part of doing this, because if you don't get the spine right, and that was an issue I had with Roger's book, I had an issue with the Captain Marvel Avengers book that I just worked on, which I did get better, but you want to make it where the spine is really leaf casted. You don't want any gaps, or else it's really not going to work the way you want it, because it's the most important part of the book, in my opinion. So let's get here. Okay, now we're gonna work on this whole section down here, because we're gonna fill it in. And I'm really curious to get my Captain Marvel Avengers book back to see if I am designated as a conserved book, or if the book is designated a conserved book. I really hope it does get designated a conserved book. I worked really hard on that, but you never know with CGC, right? You know when you get it back, and hopefully I will have a conserved grade. Okay, now what we're gonna do is we're gonna go along the top here and put all the casting on, which you see the top of the book is in bad shape. And I'm just gonna go along this corner here. And let's go along that corner. So let me just make it straight, the pulp here, if I'm doing it, so it will give me an easier surface to cut when I trim the cover, because more pulp I think is better to trim the cover than less pulp. And I'll leave that. Let's straighten this out a little bit. That I don't like the way that happened. So let's put a little bit more on this corner, and hopefully the pulp will fill in. Okay, so it looks pretty good. I think I got everything. Now, one thing that I want to do that I haven't done is I want to try to blot a straight line with the pulp. That's why, so maybe it will come out a little bit stronger by doing it that way. So I see a few areas where the graphics, I don't want to get a lot of the pulp on these areas. So I want to try to make it where the graphics at least are a little bit more noticeable and it's not covered with casting. So if I do it this way, at least I'll be able to have a leg up on cleaning the book when it dries. And right there, I don't like the way that worked, so I think what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna leave it, and we're not gonna blot it. Remember, this is the inside of the cover, and it's gonna be hidden to a degree. And remember, the key is functioning. We want the book to function. Okay, guys, I think I spoke enough. So what we're gonna do next is we're gonna take the Rimet paper. Let's get one last look. It looks pretty decent. Let's get the Rimet paper, and we wanna put the Rimet paper down as smooth as possible. And then what I wanna do is I wanna brush it as smooth as possible. And then also what I want to do is let's absorb some of the water through the Rimet paper. As you can see, it definitely absorbs, and that is why the pulp is so thick, because it is filled with water. So we want to try to get some of that water out before we start pressing it between our trusty pieces of glass. We'll take some water out this way. Let's get rid of these paper towels. I should buy some stock in Bounty because I have been using them a lot. But just to let you know, I also have been recycling them. So I'll use them 2 to 3 times. I'll put them on a pipe in my oil burner, and I use them a couple of times, so it definitely works out. So now what we want to do is we want to gently put some blotting paper on my trusty glass. So we'll do right now 3 sheets. After I put the 3 sheets, I will pick the Rimet paper up, and we will put the cover down on the sheets of paper. Next, I will take my trusty rolling pin and I will roll it flat, so hopefully the pulp will absorb into the actual methyl cellulose and the cover, making it stronger for future generations to hopefully enjoy this book. Then let's give it another brushing. I don't like, because I did put a little bit more pulp on it, it did absorb a lot, so let's reset the blotting paper. So we're gonna put, let's do 1, 2. Now generally I don't like doing it this way because I feel that it may create a seam with the paper right here, but I don't think it will because the pulp is on the top of, or the back of the cover. So let's put that down. Now let's put the blotting paper on top. Just like that. And let's put another piece. Okay. Now what we're gonna do is put the trusty glass. And we'll let that sit. And then we'll put our weights. So stay tuned. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, 80, 81, 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, 89, 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, 100, 101, 102, 103, 104, 105, 106, 107, 108, 109, 110, 111, 112, 113, 114, 115, 116, 117, 118, 119,